What are your core values? How do they affect your decision in making a career? And what happens when you are out of alignment with your values? Hello everyone, thank you so much for joining me here today. In today's video, I am going to dive into the topic of values. It is something that's been talked about for many, many years in all kinds of personal development, personal growth arenas, and there's a good reason for that. They are extremely, extremely important. And in this video today, I'm going to share why they are so important, because in truth, if you are doing something that actually is not in alignment or potentially could be conflicting with your personal values, you will actually find yourself quite unhappy and quite unfulfilled. Before I get into today's video, I want to share that I have created a free guide on how to create the professional life that you love. It's got lots of questions you can ask yourself, some tips, and also some common mistakes to avoid. I'm going to put the link to that video down below in the description area of this video. And now on to today's content. So there are a number of pieces that you have to lock into place when you are picking a career, meaning there are things you need to know about yourself. You know, the way it's been done in the past, it's like find out what you're interested, maybe what you're good at, and do some research and see where you can kind of fit yourself in. And it's really, in my opinion, the backwards way of doing it. What we actually need to do first is look at ourselves. We need to uncover key aspects of ourselves. And there's a number of them. And if you miss one of them, the problem is you can think you've got it figured out, but what usually ends up happening is you pick a career or you change jobs and you find out actually it's not in alignment. 2 years later, you're looking for something else. 2 years later, again, you're looking for something else, and the cycle continues. So it's really important to get all the pieces. And one of those pieces, 100%, is values. Now, there are a lot of values that could be representative of you, but there are going to be a few of them, what I would call your core values, that are part of who you are. So in other words, you don't really pick them, so to speak. You have acquired them along the way throughout your life. And because you don't, say, pick them or choose them, when you are in conflict with them, it's like you are living against your own truth. You might experience an inner conflict. I'm going to give a couple examples here of my own personal experience, because I find sometimes explaining these concepts, it's easier to see something. So one of my biggest, strongest core beliefs is authenticity. And within authenticity, it's being able to express the real me in this world. And when I look back upon my history in my life, when I was a child growing up, and a lot of stuff, well, most of the stuff comes from your childhood. When I was growing up, I lived in a very, very, very controlling household. I wasn't really allowed to speak. I wasn't allowed to express myself. I certainly wasn't allowed to be different. I had to blend. That was the name of the game. It was just blend in as much as you could. Don't stand out. So it was really challenging for me a lot in my life to not be able to speak and say what I was really thinking or feeling. And so now in my life, being able to be authentic is super important to me. It's not like, I kind of a nice to have. If I can kind of be me, I'm good. But if I have to kind of put up a mask and be a facade, I'm okay. No, I need to be me all the time. I need to really get deeper and deeper into who I am and to show up in this world, being able to speak my truth, honor my truth, and share my messages with the world. And so while I was in a career for many years as a CPA, there were many, many times where I wasn't allowed to do that. There were times I did do that because the issue was that important for me, often a question of ethics. So my integrity, my value of integrity also came in there. But I did get myself into some trouble at times. I was not looked upon favorably for speaking what I felt was the truth. And so it became problematic for me. it became very uncomfortable. The more it was required of me to not speak my truth, honestly, the more unhappier I became. So if you are in a career right now where one of your core values like that is you're having to require to suppress it, it can be really, really challenging. Like say one of your core values is trust and honesty. If you're in an environment where lies are being told, or there's just mistruths constantly going on around you, or no one's really wanting to speak the truth, you know, when you kind of like, you're all skirting something, but nobody really wants to say what's going on. If you've had something in your past where, you know, lies were told along, you know, many years ago, and there was a lot of struggle that was associated with that, that could be a real trigger for you. And so if you're in an environment where truth is not being spoken, it's going to be really, really, really uncomfortable, and you're going to feel really unhappy the longer you stay in that environment. So the thing about these values is the reason why they are so important is because, like I said, the core ones you don't pick. It's more like you unveil what they are. Now, going beyond that, I do believe, and from my experience, there are values that we can pick and we can say that we want to embody more. And that's more of the person we are becoming. But I'm talking about here these really core pieces of yourself that when you live against them, you will have this inner sense of conflict. So I really wanted to talk about this topic today because, you know, sometimes it can be really confusing understanding why you are unhappy. There are many reasons why you might be unhappy in an environment that you are unhappy in. And there's a lot of layers to this, but once you start, you know, in my Pathway to Purpose program, we have a process where we go through all this. Once you start to see it, you go, oh, that's why I'm unhappy. And therefore you flip that around and you say, okay, well, I need this instead. So to go back to my example of me, so, you know, what I discovered through my own process was that I can't work for a company. I can't work for a company because it requires me to not speak my truth. So being in self-employed really works for me, where I can actually share messages that I want to share. I can be my authentic self. I'm not having to fit myself into something. It's really me that you're seeing in these videos and any content. And if, you know, we end up working together, there's no mask on. And so I now have that ability, but also understanding that this might not be for everybody, right? You know, being self-employed works for me. There's a number of different reasons why it works for me, but one of them is just I am able to be authentic. So when you do find something and you do, you know, uncover those layers to find what career is suited, it can bring a sense of relief, because then you just understand why nothing else worked. And that's part of this process, is actually uncovering why everything else didn't work. And at the same time, like I said, uncovering what you do need, what you do require in your career. So I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you did, please like, share, subscribe. It is really helpful for me it helps the algorithm, it helps me get my message out there. And if there is somebody in your world who is struggling in their job right now, in their career, and you think this might help them, you know, please send this along. If you have any questions also, I'm happy to hear them, questions or comments down below. Thank you so much, and I will talk to you soon.